For those who don't watch the show, Steven Universe is about Steven Universe, a person that is half human and half gem. A gem is a type of space alien. His mom was a very powerful space alien called a diamond, so the other diamonds brought Steven to their alien planet to help save the Earth where he lives. In this episode of the show, there's going to be a ball where Steven is going to lobby for the Earth to not be destroyed. Blue Diamond, a powerful leader figure, tells Steven that he cannot bring his friends, and Steven convinces her to allow them to come with him, at which point this exchange happened.
A ball is a chance to inspire everyone.
But my friends are super inspiring. They'll inspire White too. Together we can make a case for Earth.
Very well. You can bring your pearl, of course, and your pet.
A pet?
I think she means me.
This line is disgusting. It's incredible that a line this gross made it to a finished television show. However, fans of the show will quickly defend this line's inclusion within the show, and not all of these arguments are admittedly bad ones. So let's not argue. Instead, I'm going to talk about Mr. Rogers. There's a piece in The Atlantic that discusses how Fred Rogers had a very strict way with language to the point where the writers on the show dubbed his standards Fredish. It would take phrases that are pretty clear, like "it is dangerous to play in the streets," all the way to "your favorite grown-ups can tell you where it is safe to play. It is important to try to listen to them, and listening is an important part of growing." The writing style of the show is extremely intentional. You see this level of intention in Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood as well, along with almost all strictly educational children's shows. Making sure that your messages are conveyed in an intentional way is incredibly important for these shows, especially considering what can happen when people in power don't necessarily agree with your politics. Of course, most shows don't set those kinds of standards for themselves. Additionally, most shows aren't designed to be explicitly educational. However, when the creator of Steven Universe, Rebecca Sugar, talks about the inclusion of themes of queer representation, she says this.
It's very important to me that we speak to kids about consent, that we speak to kids about identity, that we speak to kids about... There's so much I have to say about this. I want to feel like I exist, and I want everyone else who wants to feel that way to feel that way too.
This show has goals and things that it wants to have its audience feel and understand. There are concepts such as consent that the show wants to talk about with its audience in the same way that Mr. Rogers might talk about safety. In this sense, Steven Universe is an educational show, something that isn't surprising considering how often people talk about what we can learn from Steven Universe or what the show teaches us. Shows that are attempting to educate need to be deliberate about what they say and how they say it to prevent their messages from being lost or misunderstood. This brings me back to the pet line. My question, why? Why is it there? You can make the same point using the word human. In my opinion, you would make the point more clearly because Blue Diamond fails to recognize that Steven is also human. But instead, the writers of the show decide to call with one of the characters of color, their only characters of color, a pet. And at no point did anybody look at this line and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't do that. The show doesn't even bother to dwell on how messed up the line is and instead carries on like it was nothing. Blue criticizes Amethyst's small size and the way that Garnet is a fusion, but both of those characters got to argue back. Why doesn't Connie argue back? And plus, belittling your characters is different than explicitly dehumanizing one of your only characters of color. Who let this happen? Of course, not everybody will think that this matters. Some people will admit that, yeah, it's a bad look, but it's not a big deal, all things considered. In my experience arguing about shows like this, there's been a trend where people talk about how important the show is and how they feel seen because of the characters that are on the show. Yeah, you feel seen because you see Pearl going through a breakup or Amethyst's insecurities and you feel seen through them. And you find their growth empowering. But what happens when you identify with a character like Connie? If you primarily identified with Connie, what does the line calling Connie a pet say about you? What does the non-response of the characters when Connie is called a pet say about you? Even if you're unconvinced that this was a bad line, which it is, hopefully at least you can kind of see the issues with it. I mean, it's not like they would put something completely dehumanizing and racist into the show, like a human zoo or something. That'd be messed up, wouldn't it?